listening to Tom's Engaging HR podcast, where we're amplifying, humanizing, and engaging leaders who are making work better for employees every day. Thanks for joining us for a fun and engaging conversation. Let's go.
Welcome back to Tom's Engaging HR, back at the mic, my happy place. Really excited about this conversation. Another conversation that's been a long time coming, a long time friend, part of the HR community. Christie Engler is with us today. Christie is an energetic, passionate HR leader with 15 plus years of hands-on practitioner experience. She is dedicated to making the employee experience the best it can be for all people. Worked with small business in a variety of industries, including manufacturing, construction, nonprofit, healthcare, and hospitality. She strategizes, coaches, and supports, and absolutely loves building teams while helping people achieve their dreams. Christie is the current host of the HR Social Hour chat, which you can find on Twitter, and we'll talk a lot about today, I'm sure. Christie, welcome to Tom's Engaging HR.
Thanks, Tom. Long time coming.
Yeah, it's I apologize for the long delay, but I think it added a couple extra conversations in there, so it's all good.
I think it did, and I'm so excited for you. And you got your new gig, and then I got my new gig, and so we got all kinds of cool, new, fun things to talk about.
Oh yeah, new gigs are they're exciting, and they create a lot of extra stuff you got to do. So
we know it.
So I know this will probably air later, but as I was falling asleep before I turned off the TV, I think Ohio State had a pretty big win yesterday, didn't they?
We had two big wins yesterday.
All right, tell me about it.
The men and the women.
Win?
So the men's basketball team, Ohio State's men's basketball team, has been absolutely atrocious this season.
That is correct.
Loss. Unfortunately, fired our coach a couple weeks ago. And now we're winning. So it kind of is like any other organization. You know, you get rid of a leader and then things start to get better and you start to go, okay, maybe we knew what the problem was. So yeah, I think there was something culturally going on because it's a really talented group of guys. So, but big win on the road. Had not won on the road for over a year.
Really? Oh my gosh, that's a stat.
Yeah. January
not a good one.
So huge, and of course, against Michigan State, who we despise. So it was awesome. It was a great win. The other big thing is our women's team is number 2 in the country. They got their 14th straight win yesterday.
Awesome.
Over Maryland. It was a little hard fought. Those Maryland team, they really came to play, and it was senior day for Ohio State. So it's awesome. It's been really fun to watch them. They're absolutely tremendous. They're going to be number 1 seed in the women's Big Ten tournament this year.
Wow, that's a tale of two programs right there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
This is how I keep my time filled waiting for football to start.
Yeah, I'm new to liking basketball. And of all the sports I've watched, I'm a big hockey guy, big New York Giants fan, as most people probably know by now. But one of the things I like about basketball is I feel like of all the sports, it really, really exposes team culture and team cohesiveness.
Absolutely.
Even more, you get these super teams in the NBA, you got these other teams with all these star players that just can't win.
Right.
And basketball just is one of those to where you can have the right people on the bus, but how do they work together? How do they all interact?
Right.
How's that go? And I think it really translates to this work conversation we have.
So I was talking about this with my students this morning because we were actually talking about managing performance and why you shouldn't wait to have just an annual review, why you should have continuous feedback. And I said, think about any sport that you watch. Football game, basketball game, hockey game, whatever, we can see as spectators the coaches immediately addressing issues with players as it happens, right?
Yep.
And I said that's a great picture. What would happen if they waited to the end of the season to tell anybody what was going on? What if they just sat there and they didn't talk and they didn't? And so I was equating it.
Great analogy.
I said, imagine if that was your situation at work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people do have that situation at work, which really sucks. But I'm like, look at how great it is when you get that continuous, immediate feedback.
Yeah, 100%. That's that you haven't heard it yet, but that was the last episode we recorded. By the time this airs, you will have heard it. But that was a conversation with Matt Meadows just about feedback in real time, feedback, and not waiting till that once a year to make sure you're giving that.
100%. Yeah.
I will also note, I am a Buckeye fan. My dad was assistant gymnastics coach there, got his PhD at Ohio State. So I definitely have
Awesome.
some Buckeye blood. But my significant other, Erica, is a Michigan State soccer alumni. So she's
Oh,
been
jeez.
definitely bringing some go green, go white into the household, and
Oh, no.
like I've disliked them forever with no real
Yeah.
other reason. And she's like, "Well, you got to give a reason." I was like, "I don't know. I just don't like Michigan teams." But
Which is more than fine. But I actually can give you a reason, Tom. I can
okay,
give you
there
a
we go.
reason. 1998. I was a freshman at Ohio State.
Yep.
Ohio State was #1 in football. We were going, all the way. It was the year. And what's the game that we lost?
Spartans.
To Spartans.
Ugh.
And I have had a thing against them ever since. My family just cracks up. My dad's like, "You really can't stand them." I'm like, "I really can't." So, yeah. So you can tell her it goes back to 1998 football.
All right, 1998. Yeah, that's those kind of wounds stick to you for sure. Especially being a freshman too. You're all excited, #1 team, you're Ohio State, and then boom, big loss.
Well, and
there.
it's been 20-some years, and they still show replays from that game when we play Michigan State, even now. And it just gets under my skin. It just irks me to death. I'm like, do we have to keep talking about this? Because it was such a big deal. But
Yeah, it's that's like the Eagles for me in the NFL with the Giants. Like
yeah,
they just always, it's like, oh, good, there's Deshaun Jackson running back, destroying us. Thanks for showing that again.
Let's keep talking about that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So, you have a daughter. She's looking at colleges now. Is she looking at Ohio State, or is she trying to get the heck out of Dodge?
She's a junior, and so we're having all those conversations. And we were in Arizona in 2016 for a bowl game, and she just kind of fell in love with the area, and she's been talking about it ever since. So last May we went out, we visited some colleges out there. We're actually going next month to San Diego to visit some others, but she's pretty convinced she wants to go away. And she's a pretty special kid, and we're confident that she will be just fine if she decides to do that. But she has promised that she will at least take the official visit at Ohio State, and she will, consider it. So
there we go. All right. Hey, well, that sounds perfect. You got congratulations on raising a great daughter that has the ability to have these options. So
yeah, thanks. She really is.
Yeah, and the San Diego college visits, I mean, you can turn that into a pretty sweet little vacation too. So that's exactly. Not a bad place to go looking at schools.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
But let's get into some HR stuff. You have a new role? Tell us about it.
I do. So and this is great when you finally get to the point in your career where you don't have to apply for a job. I was actually referred by an old boss of mine. He was a CFO. He's friends with my new company's CFO. They were getting together. The new CFO says, this organization I'm with, we're getting big. We're kind of stuck in this PEO relationship. We really need to bring HR in-house. We don't know how to do this. We don't know where to go. And my old boss said, I have the perfect person for you. So he reached out to me. He said, hey, I think we talked not that long ago and you were looking, and this might be something. And so he connected me with the new CFO. We talked. He introduced me to the owners, met with them, and then I had an offer. So it was not
excellent.
Posted. It was not, I didn't apply for it. It just really made sense. We all have a lot of the same values and beliefs, and we're able to connect on several different levels. And so It's been really great. It's challenging always when you walk into an organization that has never really had true HR before. That's always, there's always things that come with that. But it's exciting. It's a fun challenge.
Yeah, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
that's the ultimate compliment, right? The
Right.
referral based on your body of work and your relationships.
Yeah, that's what everybody says, and you strive for. And so now, yeah, I hit the 20-year mark, and it happened. So it's pretty cool.
You
Yeah.
mentioned trying to come off PEO. That's something, my job at ADP, we talk a lot about. We have a lot of
Yeah.
clients that are kind of getting up into, into the space that I'm at. What are the main drivers? Is it if you could talk about it, but like, is it
Sure. Yeah.
cost? Is it flexibility? Is it building out that structure internally? What's driving that move?
Honestly, I think it's all those things, Tom. I think each part of that is contributing something. They were with a more local boutique PEO, and actually were
Hmm.
very happy with it. And then unfortunately, that company was acquired by a much larger entity, and they just feel like the service has tanked, quite frankly, as a
Yep.
result. Obviously, when things like that happen, you don't always keep your people that you enjoyed working with, and so it just hasn't been a great experience for them. And looking at the size and where we are and where they want to grow to, and I said, it just makes a lot of sense to bring this in house. um for us to have our own thing.
Yep.
And I see it in my coworkers. They're not getting the hug from HR
Right.
that people
Right.
need, from time to time. They're not really getting that internal, attention to the culture, and just some other
Right.
things, and so yeah, it's time. It's definitely time. And so yeah, obviously cost is also a driver. And just want to have a really, really, really good system, and have access to something really great. Unfortunately, the PEO system just leaves a lot to be desired. So
Yeah, coming off of PEO is a lot of work. So,
yeah.
I want to credit you for taking on the extra steps, the extra work to get a solution that better, wraps and supports the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get some efficiencies there, but
Right.
it is hard to build that internal culture for growth and for your people
Right.
with that type of
Right.
system.
I think coming from the PEO industry too, I expect a lot from PEO service providers. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I'm, I'm,
as you
I'm a
should.
little more picky. And because I know what it should be and can be,
Yep.
so when I'm not seeing that either, I'm like, yeah, we're not getting what we need here. So,
Well, I feel like that's one of the big things for just, and I had this conversation with Laura Mazzullo previously too, that understanding what else is out there, understanding what great looks like, is kind of the key to everything. Is constantly be looking, know what the expectations really are. I feel like so many HR people go, "This works, let's stay here."
yeah,
But you should always be benchmarking. You should always be trying to figure out what else is out there and what can be better connected for your organization.
100%. There's so many options. There's so many things, but I've had a lot of exposure to a lot of different systems, different types of companies over the years, and so I feel like I have a pretty great grasp on what's needed. What I really need is for somebody in tech to design something that's really designed for small business, that doesn't kill the bank. That's what I'm gonna hold out hope that someday that's gonna happen.
I'm not going to go into a commercial. I'll just agree with you there. Okay, keep this agnostic, but I totally know your opinions on that too. It's
Yeah, yeah,
there's some really large companies that are really great at working with small companies. There's really large companies that love selling and getting deals with small companies and then not supporting them. And you got to find that right mix for your organization.
right.
So you're in a new role. I'm in business development. VP of HR is one of my favorite people to like reach out to. Uh, what kind of solicitations are you getting? Are you getting a lot of people reaching out?
Oh my goodness gracious. So here's what's really funny. Because when you and I were talking about this, and you said, "Oh yeah, VPs of HR and CHROs and all that," and it's definitely been through the roof with this particular position. But to be honest, and because I've always worked in small business, I've always been the head of HR, even when I
Yep.
just had a director role. You
Yep.
know, I've technically been the quote unquote head of HR since 2017 for different places. So it's interesting because I probably could have been approached sooner, but maybe I wasn't on the radar because of title, and that's super interesting. We hear a lot about titles don't matter, but I disagree. I think that they do, and I'm definitely getting a different look and different types of advertisements. I've had so many for um, writing books and being on podcasts and different things, and it's like, guys, I've been doing this stuff for years. I just didn't have a
Yep.
VP title, so that's been really interesting. I was thinking about that ever since, you and I were talking about it, but yeah, tons of reach out, lots of vendors, it honestly just gets exhausting. Quite frankly,
I'm
it's
sure.
just exhausting, and it's like, I'm 20 years in. I pretty much know who I want to go with when I'm looking at stuff at this point, in my
Yep.
career. And, quite honestly, again, smaller business. We don't do every toy that's out there. We can't.
Yep.
I can't have every separate software for onboarding and offboarding and performance management. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get it all in one. So that's
Yep.
something that's very different for small businesses. We're not going to have 87 different applications. We're just not.
It's interesting you brought up all those pieces that, when I selling into HR, I I have to go really wide. You really don't know by title who's really doing what, who's the
No.
head, who's making decisions, who's
Right.
administrative. I know some VPs of HR that are just doing admin most of the
Yeah.
time.
Right.
I know some people it's just HR manager that literally are making $100,000 software purchases.
Yeah.
Them, CEO with the purse strings, but they're driving the ship. So
Right.
I think it's really important to get to know the organizations you're trying to sell into,
Yeah.
get to know the HR people for each individual business rather than
Right.
just chase titles. Like you have to get to know the
Right.
organization and what fits them.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And like I said, every some things for talking to small business. I mean, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, 100%.
You know.
It's really just a wild, like it's such a game of numbers, but it's also a game of relationships and
Yeah.
a game of on both sides. And I think if you're reaching out, I don't know, is this your least favorite thing when someone reaches out and tells you, "Oh, I've got the best solution for you." Oh, yeah,
Oh
Christy.
yes.
Oh, you have to look at my widget.
Yeah.
We're going to solve your problems, and you're like, you don't even know what my problems are. But
Right. So what's really hilarious is in my last role and in my current role, my industry is primarily staffing. So I love
mhm.
it when staffing companies reach out and want to know if they can help fill our roles. And I'm like, this is what we do. Did you bother to look at all?
Yeah,
And they're not approaching it from a, the whole partnership thing or, whatever. It's cold, like, can we just fill your roles? And I'm like, we're a staffing company. I have a whole room full of recruiters, you
yeah,
know? So again, yeah, it's when they don't do any research and it's just this, cold stuff. Not my favorite. Those emails are going to junk, and honestly, a lot of times I'm blocking those people on LinkedIn because I'm not interested. If that's why you're approaching me, I'm really not interested in that kind of a relationship.
yeah. And I mean, part of the reason I like this podcast is because it's all about me learning also how to best support HR people, learning from HR leaders, and trying to help any of those other folks in my role that are out there listening. Because it's the ones that don't do it right that stop you from picking up the phone or responding to people that are doing it a little bit more
Yeah,
right. So, if you're
right.
going to be selling Christie, you better come straight and you better care about Christie and you better do your homework. But it sounds like you got a solution already lined up too. So that's also great.
I do. I'm very excited to go back to a system that I've used before that was great. But at the end of the day, it's just the provider themselves. They have a great reputation, and I tell everybody, I have a benefits carrier broker that I absolutely adore.
Yep.
But I told him, as soon as you guys start screwing up and my people are not being taken care of, I will take my business elsewhere.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
like,
that's a zero sum space.
right.
Like,
You know, like people
you
go
have
to
to be
work
right all the time.
to get paid and get benefits. Take everything else away. That's why people go to work.
Yep.
So the payroll and the benefits have to be right, have to be done well, have to be, great offering, all this stuff. So the administration had better be tip top,
Yep.
because people don't need to worry about that stuff. And as we all know, nobody understands this stuff, yet it is so crucial
Right.
to our lives. Somebody's kid
Yep.
gets sick, somebody breaks an arm, somebody comes down with a terminal illness. I mean, this is serious stuff. So, benefits is not just, fun and games. This is really important for people's lives. So
Yep.
that kind of stuff, it has to be right.
Well, that's part of why I made the move. I love employee engagement. I loved what I was doing, at People Element, but I looked at where I can have the most impact, and it's
Yeah,
being with a company that can help that base. If your
right,
base of operations, your base isn't there, it
right,
doesn't work. And I
right.
just came from lunch with an insurance broker before this, and my question was, how do we work best with you? And they said, don't screw up. Don't screw anything up ever. They're like, that's the broker world. Like, you
Yeah,
can't screw up for us and we can't screw up for them, and none of us can screw up for the client.
right, right,
It's that important. There's just,
right.
you hear that, like, we're not curing cancer here. Well, in this topic, trying to help people cure cancer very realistically.
Right. Yeah. Well, and when people do make a mistake, I mean, I've gotten to the point now in my life, I am the first person to admit when I screw up. When I did something wrong, when I whatever, I am the first person to say it. It's not that big of a deal, and
Yes.
I've been blessed to have a lot of bosses and mentors and just coworkers, just people that I've worked with for many years who are not the type to rake you over the coals for making a
Yep.
mistake. There's been a
Yep.
lot of grace. There's been a lot of, okay, what can we learn from this? Kind of stuff. Um, so I expect the same with anybody that I partner with. You
Yep.
make a mistake, just admit it. Just admit it. Here's the
Yep.
solution. Let's move on. When we try to hide things, when we try to blame other people, when we, that is just a complete turnoff for me too.
No one's perfect. No one expects you to be perfect.
Right.
Just be consistent, be good every chance you get. And when you're not, fix it, own it, and move forward in a way that's
Right.
productive.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about your other new job, the HR Social Hour chat host. And then we're really going to dig into HR networking and some of the things that you see out there, good and bad, opportunities to learn how to do it right and where to go. So we're going to jump into that as soon as we take this quick break. All right, Christie, it is time for the HR hot sauce. Are you ready?
Ready.
What most engages you?
Anything where I am challenged and honestly where I can help other people, whether it's my peers, and I really get jazzed about training managers. So those things really engage me.
Me too. What is your favorite piece of technology you use at work?
I love a good HRIS that works, where all the pieces work together and you can just have a one-stop shop to find information. I do not currently have that. I'm getting it soon.
Excellent. We can talk about that for sure. What's your favorite interview question to ask or be asked?
So when I interview people locally or in the Midwestern area, I ask what their Big Ten affiliation is, because there are two wrong answers.
One
and that
better
will
be
set
Michigan.
The tone for our relationship. So yes, they're both from that state up north, and everything else is fine. So no, you know what? I like to ask people what do you like to do for fun. Like seriously,
Excellent.
just I like to just get to know people. I don't like all the stuffy interview questions. Like, just tell me what you do for fun.
That's pretty close to how I answered that question, so I'm going to take that.
Okay.
Favorite workday lunch?
I am a Chipotle girl, so anytime anybody wants to go to Chipotle, it's the only thing I could keep down when I was pregnant, both times. So it kind of has just a wonderful place in my heart. So if anybody wants to go to Chipotle, I'm game.
I'm down. Next time we're in real life, let's do it.
Okay.
What is your most unique or useless skill?
I remember everything. And it's good and bad. There's a lot of pros and cons that come with that. It drives my husband insane. He's like, I seriously, you don't forget anything. Like, I know exactly what happened and whatever. And it helps me too, because like I'm really good with people's names and stuff like that. So yeah, I have a pretty incredible memory.
What makes your day at work?
I mean, honestly, if I feel like I've helped anybody, even if it's a small thing, that makes my day. And if I feel like especially my coworkers and people around me are having a good time and are successful and are excited about something, we've worked through something, that's a great day.
That is a great HR leader right there. Mild, medium, hot, or nuclear?
Mild. I liked spicier stuff when I was pregnant, and then now that has just tanked and gone away. So I got to keep it
Stay away
mild.
from that red sauce at Chipotle, huh?
Yeah.
All right. You made it through the HR hot sauce. Let's get back to the conversation. All right. Fun HR hot sauce. Christy, was that fun? You probably listened to it a few times. Different doing it?
Yeah. It always is. You think about your responses when you listen to other people.
Yeah, and then when you do it, it's always a little bit harder. It really comes from the gut. Speaking from experience. So you're running the HR Social Hour chat. John was our guest number one, interviewed me, known John forever. Probably the reason I know you, most likely the reason I know you. Tell me about the HR Social Hour chat that you're hosting.
Absolutely. So I think the podcast and the chat and all of that took off about 2016, 2017 with John Thurmond and Wendy Daly. And, they produced some tremendous content in, a handful of years that they did everything. The podcast is still available if anybody wants to go out there and listen to them. But one of the things that they did was a twice a month chat on Twitter, which most of us refuse to call it X. We're going to keep calling it Twitter.
Or Twix, as John John called it.
They call it Twix. Oh, jeez. Twix.
I thought that was pretty funny. You can call it whatever you want. I know. No one even knows what to do with this thing.
Well, many of us, yeah. I'm not calling it X. I will call it Twitter. I'm going to dig my heels in the sand. But,
no problems here.
But yeah, so twice a month on a Sunday night, I just have always found the chat to be sometimes the best part of the start of my week. Just a great way to kind of get geared up, right, for the week ahead in HR. Yep. And just connecting with all these cool people. I mean, literally the people that I have met through HR Social Hour. Absolutely tremendous. And not just social media friends. These are people who I've now become in real life friends with. Yep. Who a lot of times throughout the week, you just pick up the phone and I'm calling and texting with people regularly. And when something comes up, you've got your squad that you can reach out to. Hey, this happened. Have you ever been through this before? Mary Williams and I, Mary's out in Chicago. I met Mary through all of this. We've become really good friends. We've spent, a lot of time together now at conferences and some different events. She and I were talking not that long ago about the, Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. How do we do this? Do you have forms?
Yeah.
Do I have forms? I talk to Tina Marie Wallfield on a very regular basis. Jeff Polkowski, Paul Lalonde, you name it.
Yep. It's a great group.
Yeah. So just really fun, just a wonderful group of people. And I just have learned so much from all of them because everybody's experiences are different and everybody works in different sectors. And and whatnot. And so it's just been really tremendous. Not to mention the fact that I've made connections with people in other countries, other side of the world.
Yeah.
Really, really great and crazy to think that all of this, essentially came from HR Social Hour and Twitter. And so John and Wendy, this last summer, they put it in for many years, and they got other stuff going on in their lives, and they said, we think we're gonna hang this up, and John let me know, and I gave it about a day's thought, and I texted him back and said, I think I want to take over the chat. I said I have no interest in podcasting at this time in my life. I have no time for that. I'm going to leave that to Tom Horns of the world, who are really good at this stuff. That is not my bag, but I need the chat. Like I need the chat to continue. And so he and Wendy were agreeable, and so I kicked it off in August. And of course, your perfect co-host to start with is Steve Brown. So we did
Oh yeah.
that. And so, yeah, second and fourth Sundays of the month, 7 o'clock Eastern, Twitter, and we just have a different topic. And anybody is welcome to serve as co-host, help come up with questions. People just reach out and say, hey, can we talk about this on the chat? And I'm like,
That's great.
absolutely. Of course. I feel like the chat belongs to all of us.
Yes.
I'm just kind of help facilitating. But it's a platform for all of us. So if somebody wants to use it for something, have at it. But would love to see engagement there.
So how do people join if someone's listening has never been a part of a chat? Like, how do you join? How do you find it? Where do you go? Walk us through kind of the basics of finding and participating in the HR social hour chat.
So the first thing you have to have is a Twitter account. So the pushback I'm getting a lot of is, I don't need another social media account. Or when Elon Musk bought Twitter, a lot of people said, see you later.
Yep.
I totally get that. However, today, Twitter is still free. And so it gives us a platform that people are familiar with and that you don't have to pay for. And for me, and I know a lot of people have had issues with what they see, what they don't see in their feeds. I am not a tech guru at all, and so I don't know any tricks of the trade of how to fix your feed other than not, following certain people or whatnot.
Yep. And don't
But
comment on them either, even if you don't
right,
follow them. Just don't
yeah,
don't
just
interact. Don't feed the
just move
machine.
on, right? Just scroll on past.
Yep.
But I've used it for years for two purposes: for HR and for Ohio State football. Like, my in-laws have not found me on Twitter, kind of thing. So I tell
Yep.
people that I'm like, I have found this to actually be more friendly in that way than even like Facebook, where I feel like you can be more found.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I had Twitter the old way and I got rid of it because I was like, yeah, there's just so much gunk, like
Yeah,
politics and just stuff I don't want to deal with.
yeah.
I started from scratch with only HR and New York Giants football people.
There you go.
And my feed is such an uplifting
Yeah,
place. Like, Twitter is a very safe, happy place for me. There's no
agreed.
nothing. It's all just the conversations I want to see. And a lot of it's HR community providing that positive inspiration and that safe, welcoming place.
Absolutely.
Like, when you're in HR, you're in your walls of your business,
Right.
and there's not a lot of friends a lot of the time. There's
Right.
not a lot of places to go. You can feel very segmented, and that community will welcome you in, and it can be a source of inspiration. It can be a source of motivation. You can have friends, and you can really have resources to reach out to people that you
Absolutely.
didn't have before. You just
Right.
don't feel alone out there just trying to deal with compliance and all the minutia of HR.
100%. I mean, there's people from all the different walks of, we've got some people who have already been in it for 40 years who'll tell you how it used to be. We've got
Yeah.
newbies, every industry you could think of. We've got the lawyers, we've got the practitioners. I mean, we've really got a great group. So if you get your Twitter account, you get out there, follow the hashtag HR Social Hour. You can go back and look at old chats. You can still respond to old chats if you find a question that you're like, hey, this is cool. So
And
yeah,
they're great questions. I find myself jumping back in after, is that the time for my time zone doesn't always line up, but
Right.
I'll jump back in and just see my feed and see a question, be like, wow, that's a great question. And then I can still participate. People are still, the conversation lives on past the 1 hour chat twice a month.
Absolutely. And there's probably people in some of the other countries who will participate the next morning. You'll see them, popping in, many hours later, which is cool. So it kind of lives on. But yeah, usually start, promptly right at 7. And you kind of just follow the hashtag and stay with the questions. I find it easiest to actually open 2 windows on your browser,
I
so
always
you
have
can,
several windows
yeah, so you
for
can
sure.
follow, and actually put your comments in one and then follow everybody else's in another.
There's a really strong GIF game on the chats too. I found a
Yes.
lot of really good GIFs I'd never seen that I'm now using. So it's I haven't, full disclosure, I couldn't make last night's, but I pulled it up this morning and I was just going to answer it. And I was like, wow, these are really good questions. I want to be thoughtful about it. It's sometimes they're really easy, fun, goofy
Yeah.
questions, and sometimes they're really deep.
Right.
And so I've got an earmark to go back in and make sure I'm thoughtful on some of these. Like I'll tell you, it was challenging
Yes.
for me in a good way,
Yes.
which I think is a compliment to the content you guys are talking about on a bi-monthly basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. The topic this just last night was diversity in the workplace. And Anthony Paradiso has been a long time, HR community member, very supportive, and does a lot in the DEIB space. And so he was the perfect person to co-host this chat. And he had great questions, but like you said, very thought provoking. And definitely for me, I've been on a kind of an exploration journey in that space for the last, several years. And so it's really great too, because I know that there's a couple things that I think I want to have an offline conversation with Anthony about.
Yep,
And I know that he'll respond. I know that he'll be
that's
like,
great.
sure, you know, let's set up virtual coffee or whatever. And everybody's like that. It's like, yeah, we want to, or somebody makes a comment and you say, hey, I want to understand what you meant by that, or, somebody will talk about an experience that they had or something that they were able to implement, in HR in their space. And you could say, hey, can you talk to me about how this actually went? And people love that, and everybody's so willing to
Yep.
give their time and their energy to just making the profession better.
That is a noble cause and that is needed. So
Right.
thank you. Thank you for carrying that torch. Thanks for John and Wendy for getting that started and carrying that torch for as many years. But it lives on. It's a great chat. We'll have links to that, of course. But I encourage everybody to check that out. I do want to talk about, and I'm excited for this part of the conversation. Just there's so many positives to the HR networking, but you also see a lot of goofy stuff out there too. And it really brings to light how much work, things that I think are just, table stakes in HR
Yeah.
really are not table stakes to a lot of organizations out there.
Right.
Um, can you talk through, you're in Twitter, you're on Facebook, like talk through some of the other places that you're at and some of what you're seeing that maybe is raising a little bit of a red flag and alarm for you that you're seeing, coming out of people participating in these networks.
It's so interesting when timing is just perfect and spot on. And when you and I talked a couple weeks ago about this, and you said, "Hey, what are you seeing that's driving you nuts?" And I was like, "Tom, let me vent," and you did, which I really, really appreciated.
It's
Um,
my pleasure.
because the timing could not have been more perfect. When I give talks and when I present at conferences, I tell my peers all the time, if you're going to be on the Facebook HR pages, please proceed with caution. I've seen a lot of good out there, kind of similar to what we were talking
Yep.
about with the Twitter community. Hey, I'm, so and so many years in, I work in manufacturing, I'm having this issue, I'm in, Nebraska. Can anybody help? And I see people
Yep.
respond with great advice and all kinds of cool things, somebody posted just last week about wanting to start manager training. So of course I am like jumping on this because that is my favorite topic. And I've already created a lot of manager training. And I know how much time and effort it takes. I also know how expensive it can be. And so I offer my materials to anybody who wants them free of charge. I'm not
Wow,
looking to
that's
make
awesome.
any kind of thing. I want to help people because I know if you don't have good trained managers, you don't have anything. I promise you, your
100%.
culture sucks if your manager
Totally,
sucks.
totally.
So I put that out there, and I had like 40 some people respond
Wow.
and emailed me, "Hey, can I have your deck? Can I have your deck?" And I sent it out to all these people. And I'm like, "Hey, if anybody needs any help with anything, let me know. I'm not here to sell anything. I just want to help." So, and you see that, you see all these good things, but then you see people who, I swear, sometimes they just post stuff to provoke and to poke the bear. And this is when my friend Leslie has to pull me back and say, "Okay, you don't need to go down that rabbit hole." Sometimes I have to,
All right, yeah, give me
have
one of
some
those.
self-awareness and say, "Okay, I got to get out of this one." So a couple years ago, I saw one that is still sticking with me today. I actually just recently added it to a presentation because it bothered me so much. It was a person who was asking how to implement a PTO donation program. And she went on to explain that they had an employee, long-time tenured employee, who got, critically ill, who ran out of time. And they, seemed like they were maybe a smaller mid-sized organization, didn't have, strong disability policies and things like that. So she was going down this PTO donation program route. And I was livid about it. I was furious about it because, you've been doing this as long as you have. And when you work with smaller business, you get to know owners and you get to know leaders and you get to know the finances of organizations. And I can tell you that there's more money there than people act like there is. A lot of times, you know. When you have a situation like this, you have a long time tenured person who gets critically ill, you take care of them. You just do. That's the right thing to do.
I love that mindset.
So
Doesn't sound like it's universal.
I put that out there, Tom, and the backlash I got about, "Oh my God, you're setting a terrible precedent." So then I went back at it and said, "You're all using precedent as a cop-out. Show me two situations. Show me where this employee and another employee had the exact same circumstances, and then we can talk about precedent."
Yep.
Okay, that's not what the courts are looking at. Courts are looking at, did the employer take care of the employee? Did they do what they needed to do to make the employee successful, whole, whatever? That's what they're looking for. Not, "Oh my God, you gave somebody an extra month's worth of PTO and you didn't give it to everybody else." Okay?
And you didn't take PTO from everybody else.
Right?
That also is working their job.
Right?
To give to this person.
Like, are you kidding me? But it scares me because this is how a lot of practitioners are practicing today. Because they're so afraid of litigation that they're not doing the right thing. So they're practicing in fear and not just taking care of people. That's not the right way to go. So that was one that I got going on.
Did you see, in the debate, and it sounds like it got pretty heated, and sounds like there was some pretty sharp takes in that. Yeah. Did you see anything productive on the other side that gave you something to think about? Or did everyone just fight? Or not even you specifically, but sounds like, everyone's got their corner of, nope, don't do anything, or you should take care of them. Was there anything productive that came out of that?
I mean, there were a number of people who were, talking about different kinds of disability policies, EAPs, things like that. Which I appreciate. You're trying to open up the toolbox. Yep. You're trying to, whatever. But when you have a person who's, say 45 years old and they get, terminal COPD or cancer or, whatever, sometimes that's zero sum game. Sometimes
Yeah.
that is the absolute, end of things, and absolutely can destroy their family, and everything else. And so those are the things that I didn't feel like enough of the people who were responding were thinking of.
It was more X's and O's.
Yeah. Yeah. Fill out the form, check the box, follow the law to the letter. And I mean, quite frankly, it was just BS, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough situation. And I can also see feeling pretty alone in that,
Yes.
and just making a decision on your own that may not be the best decision. And that's
Right.
where the importance of really zooming out, having a network, having other inputs to help guide you through some of these tough decisions, rather than, well, this makes sense, let's just take PTO from someone else.
Right. Right. And I'm like, you know what? It's at the end of the day, if the company had given that person, even 30 days of PTO, it's not going to break them. It's not going to break them financially, right? But it might mean everything to this person.
Or set a precedence.
Yeah, right. And you can choose to do that as an owner, as a manager, whatever. You can choose to do that, especially if you've got a long-term, tenured rock star employee. You're allowed to make those decisions and have some management discretion.
Yep.
I don't understand why everybody in HR doesn't understand that. Because if you go back to case law, there's not a whole lot like that. They're not looking for things like that. They're looking for when you've got employers who are truly terrible employers. Yes. And do truly bad things to people.
Yep. I think another example you gave, and I think this ties back into that management training that you talked about being the core of everything. Tell the point-based attendance story.
Oh, dear God. So, I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in construction. I've worked with a lot of the, the trades and whatnot. And still, 2024, we still have organizations that operate like it's 1970 and basically treat employees like they're just the labor, and like it's this management versus labor mindset. There's still a lot of that. And one of the things that you see are these, points-based attendance systems or points-based occurrence systems. So not long ago, as in the last couple of weeks, somebody posted on one of those Facebook groups, hey, how do I go about putting in a points-based attendance system in a manufacturing facility? And I must have been one of the first people to see it.
Yeah.
And I just responded, I said, I'm just going to be direct. This is a horrible idea. This is a very old school practice. And I wouldn't recommend it. What I would do instead is come up with a solid performance management strategy that addresses performance, because I understand manufacturing and that people have to be there. I get that.
Yep. Yeah, they're not on the line. It's not happening.
Right. But you don't need to do seat checks in order to have great performance and great outcomes. Right? That's not how you do that. So I said, get your performance management strategy in line, get your managers trained, because that's probably a big part of your problem, and let me know if you need help, because I will talk about this with you all day.
Yeah.
A lot of other people then responded throughout the day and basically said the same thing. And somebody put, yeah, that's the equivalent of a sticker chart in kindergarten.
I mean, it really is.
Which I thought was a great analogy. I'm like, that is a fantastic analogy of that. 100% true. And that's how you're treating them. That's how you're treating your people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son in elementary school came back, was like, I got 5 stars in these categories. Like,
right.
Yeah. That's 3rd grade.
I remember the sticker chart when we were trying to bribe Avery to be potty trained.
Well, and I think that's that's the intersection between this whole HR conversation. It's strategic, have a plan, build a structure, manage your effectiveness, performance management, tie it together, culture, development, bring those people in, and then kind of the old administrative stick
Right.
Do this or you'll have to deal with that, where HR does get a lot of the bad name from.
Right.
That, do this or you're in trouble kind of mentality
Right.
versus, hey, let's work a little harder. Let's
Yep.
zoom a little further out and build a structure
Right.
that supports these. And when you do that, there's stats all over the place about attendance, injury, all those type of pieces going way down when
Right.
you actually stop and do the structure rather than just carry the stick.
Absolutely. And I'm like, nobody is in a position right now, especially in this market, to be treating employees like they're expendable. Where are you going to get a whole new manufacturing floor tomorrow?
Yeah.
Please tell me where you're going to find all those folks.
Yeah, I mean, unemployment's going back down.
Yeah.
Hiring good people, hiring
Yeah.
people that want to be there. You got to get the right people and take care of them,
Right.
or else you're in the wheel that just turns and turns, and your business is stuck in the middle, right where it's always been.
Right. So yeah, these things scare me.
So as we tie this up, it sounds like it comes back to, would you say the most important thing HR can do is help create a structure to develop leaders in the organization, both in HR and on the front lines? Is that where you see the rubber hitting the road of progress?
Well, I do, and it's not even just about creating leaders. It's just about creating happy employees. Not everybody wants to be a leader, which is totally fine. We need all levels.
Yep.
We need all types of people, and I do believe some leadership qualities are inherent. I get mine from my dad. I know exactly where that came from.
Yep.
We talk all the time about the apple not falling far from the tree, and my dad was a CEO and we share a lot of those qualities, whereas my siblings do not. So, I think there's some natural inclinations and characteristics that people have for leadership, but I think the key is development.
Yes.
Is what you said, is developing people. Develop them where they are. Meet them where they are. If somebody just wants to work the line for 30 years, but they love it, and that's their passion and purpose, let's do it. But let's make it the best we can for them.
Yeah, I love that distinction that we always talk about leadership, but at the same time, like, you do need managers. You need people that don't care as much about leadership, but
100%.
having a structure to support all those different groups of people is really where organizations, HR can make a difference.
Right. Class, I adjunct at Ohio State. We had a really great discussion last week about, and these are kids who are juniors and seniors at Ohio State, undergrad, getting ready to graduate,
Yep.
talking about how there's not enough exposure and not early enough to the trades, and that not everybody's meant to go to college, and not everybody should go to college. And here's these college kids who are very vocally advocating for, this just isn't for everybody, and we've done a terrible job in this society. The last couple generations there's been so much focus on college and leadership, and well, that's not for everybody. So let's meet people where they are
and provide the structure for them to be successful wherever they are.
Right.
I love it. This has been a great conversation, Christie. I really appreciate, I didn't get to a lot of the notes where we'd go, but that's why this podcast is great. It's just the conversation, where the guests take this thing, and it's really real conversation. I feel like I've taken a lot out of this, even though we talk often.
But yeah, I know. That's what I love about all these people that I meet, because every time I talk to you, talk to John Thurman, talk to whoever, I learn something new.
So if somebody wanted to get your deck, and if people wanted to connect with you,
100%.
if people want to ask you questions, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, obviously. And I have no problem with people reaching out to me via email direct.
Excellent. I will put all of your information in our show notes. Don't try to sell her anything. And if you do, you better come correct. You better come correct.
I'm just tired right now.
Well, and that's it too. I target people that are new enrolled, but not so new enrolled that they're just trying to wrap their arms around the business and figure it out. You're not going to get anywhere. You got to let people, figure things out and settle in and not be tired. And maybe you might get a better conversation. So.
Right.
Well, perfect. Christie, thank you so much. HR Social Hour Chat on Twitter, Twix, not X. We'll put links to that. Check it out. You'll find me there. And this has been great.
Thank you so much.
So for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Christie, thank you for your time. And we will see you back in 2 weeks to learn more about how Tom's engaging HR to make work better. Break signals. Take us home.